Canada, and welcome back to Late Night Nationalism, the only show where you can get nationalism after hours. I'm your host, Zoe Christofilianis, here to reflect on what I've learned in Social 20. Tonight, we're looking into some big questions about identity, global responsibility, and what nationalism means today. With me tonight is my co-host, Cassie Kozlowski.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Okay, question 1, Canadian identity and contending loyalties. So, our big question for tonight, Zoe, I'll start with this. What do you think our Canadian national identity is?
Well, to answer your question, I see Canadian national identity to be diverse, inclusive, and multicultural. And I believe these are some of Canada's strengths. I wouldn't say I have a strong sense of civic nationalism because I feel more connected to the internationalist policies, but I would say I believe in Canada's democratic values and how everyone's voice and opinions matter in the improvement of our country. I believe in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms that allows Canadians not just to live free of discrimination, racism, sexism, and much more, but also to have rights no matter who you are. Unlike other countries, like our neighbor to the south, who discriminates against anyone who isn't a white, male, MAGA supporter. I won't say Canada is without its faults, because it has a lot, but we do have an outline for a future of freedom, which makes me feel more hopeful that as a nation and as a country, we can get there.
Some great points made there, Zoe, thank you. Now, do you feel a sense of civic or political nationalism? How do you feel about standing for the national anthem every Monday?
Well, I don't always feel a strong emotional connection to political nationalism. For example, I respect the national anthem and I hear it every Monday morning, but it feels more like a forced routine than a moment of pride. To be honest with you, Cassie, I don't know if I could say that hearing O Canada every Monday morning at 8 a.m. makes me feel like a more connected Canadian citizen. This could be because I'm still waking up, but the more honest answer would be that the meaning and impact of the national anthem is lost behind the routine.
I hear you with that one. My next question for you is, do you have any contending loyalties as a Canadian citizen?
Well, Cassie, I do have contending loyalties because I believe in the factors of internationalism and what it stands for. It conflicts with my identity as a Canadian citizen, but of course I am a proud Canadian and I am so grateful to live in a country where as a young woman I have opportunities, access to education, rights, and freedoms. But I do not believe that only looking out for your nation's needs and interests is the right way to go. There are many countries that are war-torn, facing famine, poverty, and lacking the basic essentials and resources they need to survive and function. And I believe that Canada is in a position to help these struggling nations, as are others like the US. I understand that it is not in the view of all Canadians. That is why it's my contending loyalty.
Good point. Okay, question 2, ultranationalism, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, I appreciate you saying this because yes, Canada has and will likely still have its problems, but it's nothing compared to what is currently happening in other parts of the world. I think Canada has this sense of nationalism and pride in the way that it helps other nations or countries. Like back in Rwanda, we have this sort of pride when it comes to that aid, but I think we lack in what we're doing in other countries, like in Gaza, for example. Nationalism can also be seen in this situation where people from certain countries carry a different pride to fight for their country and culture. So, do you think ultranationalism can ever be positive?
Well, to start, thanks for your opinion. I agree with that 100%. I do not believe that ultranationalism can be positive. I think that ultranationalism leads to exclusion and harm. We've seen it in history from Nazi Germany to the Rwandan genocide to fascist Italy, where extreme nationalism has been justified and has justified violence, discrimination, and war between nations. But in some situations, strong national unity can actually be helpful. For example, during World War II, Canada's unified support of the Army showed how national pride and can motivate people to act for a common cause. Even when ultranationalism seems positive, it can actually come with consequences. The consequences like the internment of Japanese Canadians. So no, I don't believe ultranationalism can ever truly be positive. I think it crosses the line from unity into the division of people.
Okay, question 3. Nationalism and the universe. The Hubble Ultra Deep Field shows how massive the universe is. Carl Sagan said that when we see how small the Earth is, nationalism seems foolish. What do you think about this?
Well, I think what Carl Sagan said is true. When you look at the image, it's just a tiny patch of sky and it's filled with thousands of galaxies. It's hard not to question why there's so much borders, conflict, and power-hungry people in our own world. Nationalism can give people a sense of belonging and a shared purpose, but the key way is using it responsibly and focusing on how working together as a globe and not individually. And taking accountability and responsibility is an also important way to use it responsibly. So, while our world does make us seem small in the universe, I think it's a reminder to be more united and thoughtful towards each other, and instead of using nationalism as a weapon.
Question 4. What I or you have learned. Okay, what did you learn about yourself when taking social this year? And how has your worldview changed?
Well, that's a pretty great question, Cassie, because I have learned a lot. This course has made me look at how I view nationalism and what my perspective and worldview on nationalism is. To be honest, I've never really thought about where I stand with nationalism or my view on it. Of course, I felt connected with Canada while celebrating Canada Day or watching the Blue Jays, even though that they kinda suck.
That's a good point, yeah.
But I have never felt super connected with my Canadian identity, and I have never wanted to be more part of this country than any other. I now understand how complex nationalism is. Nationalism can unite people, but it can also create conflict to justify injustices. For example, genocides, discrimination, and war, like I talked about with my previous points. Through this class, I've learned that I am more of an internationalist, as my worldview has not really changed, but developed and grown into this idea. I believe we should put more effort into thinking about the needs and interests of other nations and not putting them before our own. And I believe it is our national responsibility to help and protect nations that are seeking our help. I have also learned not to think about the only question of what is nationalism, but who benefits from nationalism, who is excluded, and what does global action and responsibility actually look like in today's world.
Okay, so how can you use what you've learned moving forward?
I hope that I can use what I learned in Social 20 this year to be more of an active member in our community, and in the future and in the present, not just by voting, but by learning and speaking up and staying engaged what's happening around me and understanding current world events. What will stick with me the most is the idea that I have a role to play, not just as a Canadian citizen, but as a global citizen as well. And most importantly, I have learned that everyone has a role to play in their own country, nation, and community.
Okay, that's a wrap for tonight. Thank you, Zoe. I appreciate all of your insight, the positive and the negative. I think it's important to acknowledge these parts of our country and to be reminded of our history and how it came to be, and how we should move forward based on that for the better.
Thank you, Cassie, for all of your opinions. And thank you to everyone watching. We will see you next time on Late Night Nationalism. Good night.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, buddy. Good night, eh?